Well, first of all, welcome, Alan. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us on your birthday. I know you said your kids have the dinner ready, so to celebrate in a few hours, but thank you for spending your precious day with us. We appreciate it. And hello to all of my familiar faces from around the globe. Happy June, wherever you are, and hopefully you're getting a bit more sunshine and light than we are here in the UK, but enjoying wherever you are. Impact Leaders Lab is a private community for you as a select group of senior sustainability professionals to help you accelerate your professional development and solve problems with your peers. So you can see what you get as a member of the Impact Leaders Lab in the chat. I put in a few of the links, and part of the membership you get is our first of its kind CSO playbook, so Chief Sustainability Officer playbook. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Shannon Howd, and I get the right people into the right roles to advance careers for a more sustainable world. I connect people to their wider purpose in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And some people have called me a career magician, others a transformational life coach, but I really see myself as a career journey partner. So anywhere you are on your path, I am here to support you, challenge you, help you gain insights and overcome any blocks to your own growth and your own ability to shape the impact and make a difference that you're wanting to do through your careers. I'm an ICF certified coach, so I've been 25 years in recruitment and 20 years in sustainability. I've sat in your seats. I've worked in nonprofits and for-profits and management consulting, and even run my own ecotourism business down in Patagonia, Chile. So done a lot of different things myself and had to reinvent myself many times, which is why I ended up starting Walk of Life, because I saw there was really a need for support for those of us wanting to make a difference in our careers and not knowing how to reinvent ourselves and how to grow within those. So I've had the honor of working with more than 4,000 change leaders and helping them excel to the next stage of their careers. Alan will tell you a little bit about his story today as well. Thought for today. So I have, usually I'll pull in a thought or I'll do a quote. Today, though, I have a very simple quote that got a lot of hits on LinkedIn when I posted it, and I love its simplicity. And the reason I like it is because for most of us, we suffer with a little bit of imposter syndrome at some point in our sustainability, ESG, social impact journey. So if you feel ever a little bit uncomfortable that you should have the answers, don't worry. So this is a very simple quote by Terry Patton. To be an effective agent of change does not mean we have to know everything. Mm-hmm. And I think just that simplicity of that, giving ourselves permission that we don't have to be the subject matter expert. We don't have to know everything. You know, we just have to know how to ask good questions. We need to know how to help others come along the journey with us and feel empowered and engaged. And really just to be able to build the business case, which Alan's going to share with us today. How do we get more funding and more resources towards our initiatives that are mattering? So welcome. With no further ado, welcome, Alan. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to introduce Alan through his bio, and then I'll turn it over and let him tell you a bit about what he's up to these days. So Alan is head of programs at the Human Safety Net, which is Generali's corporate foundation. They have 56 partner NGOs and funding partners, including Accenture, Dell, Hogan Lovells, and Cisco. And Alan's collaborative efforts have linked him with esteemed organizations such as the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth, Visa Foundation, Accenture, JP Morgan, and UNICEF, among others. In his leadership journey, he served on the steering committee of a global network fund and held board positions with the Human Safety Net Foundations in Switzerland, Argentina, and Hungary. His expertise is also shared academically as a lecturer on Executive Masters in Philanthropy, CSR, and Grant Making at the SAA Business School of Management in Torino, Italy. His impact is notable. He has led a global corporate foundation to meet its initial 5-year targets. He's expanded programs into over 24 markets and integrated social innovation across various business functions, securing significant co-funding for these impactful initiatives. So if you have questions for Alan, which I'm sure you will, please add them into the chat. And then at the end of my interview with him, I will curate those, make sure they're on our topic for today, and ask you to really ask the question directly yourself. And then we can open it up to the floor so we can have this be an engaging event. So welcome, Alan, and thanks so much again for being here to share your wisdom about the 3 ways to influence the business strategy through a corporate foundation.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks a lot. And good morning, good afternoon, all of you.
Great, good. Yeah, it's a little bit late for you in the day, but in Italy, you're sitting in your office, probably your home office in Milan, I guess.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So if you could kick off by giving us a little bit of a background of how you and I know each other, as we just recognize we're having our 10-year anniversary, which is fantastic. So tell us all a little bit about how we've worked together, and then we can get into your role and some of your achievements.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're chatting just before and realizing it's actually 10 years that we've been knowing each other. So it was 2014. So to me, it's a big day today because it's my birthday. And I just realized actually it's 10 years, that I've been working with you, Shannon. And yeah, I guess, it was 2014. And I was, after working for many years on, in the African continent, different countries there, I took a gap year to travel around, Africa on a motorbike. And that's when I first realized, that I wanted to go back to Europe and start working in Europe. But my, resume was quite difficult because, I had a lot of experience on the ground, but, not a lot of experience, back in continental Europe. So when you were mentioning before the fact that, you kind of help reinventing careers, that's exactly what happened to me in a way, right? Because, I mean, I knew I had the skills and I could, do something there, but I didn't really know how to translate them, first into a CV, but also like in telling a narrative around myself. And during the first year, like it really was for me like a career journey partner, Shannon, in all of this, because we first started talking in 2014, then again in 2019, and then again, we went on and until today. And it was literally a walk of life in a way for me as well, because you really I feel I really grew into new roles with your support, and so thanks for that, and it made a big difference for me.
Well, good. That's all you. You do the heavy lifting, but I'm glad I was a partner in the journey. And Alan and I have gotten a chance to actually have in-person sessions, which have been lovely. And we used to meet actually in London, but now in Italy. So that's been really special most recently. So tell us a little bit about your role at a high level. What does Alan do on a day-to-day?
Yeah, so I'm officially the role is like head of programs, the Human Safety Net, which is the corporate foundation of Generali. And for those of you that do not know Generali, it is an insurance and asset management company, and the headquarters are here in Italy, and that is where I am, and where I'm from as well. So as head of programs, I lead the foundation's work on 3 main areas, which are the programs part, which is now actually more than 80 partners. They've been growing very fast. So program area is one, partnership is the second one, and then social innovation is the third one, which this last one looks more at the business and how to leverage assets and competences of the business. So these are my 3 areas, which is really the core work of the foundation.
Great. Okay. I like the framing. That makes it sound simple, but it sounds like each of those could be its own job in and of itself. So I know we'll dig into more, but it's working for the work-life balance that we're all striving for, right? So okay, so you're basically now heading the work. This is a 6-year-old foundation, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and you have a presence in 27 countries. You just said you have 80 partners.
Right.
So really a big portfolio. What steps specifically have you taken in your role to help it evolve in these past years?
So I did join, it was in 2019. And when I first joined, the Human Safety Net was, 1.5 years old. So really like still a baby. And now there was something like 8 countries, if I remember well, that we were active in. So really, like, the first step for me was to grow, right? Geographically, first of all, extending our footprint. And we did that, right? Because I mean, the 27 countries, that we're active in today, tells that. But they say that with change comes growth, but actually, I guess that is true. But to me, what I experienced is that with growth, needs also change needs to come with it, right? So the other way around. And so I felt, like after the first year and a half, that we were so widespread in so many countries, that we had to start focusing more and more on the real impact of our work, right? So this was basically probably the second step that I took there, which is to focus more on measuring our impact. And I think if you look at the sector of social impact, probably 10, 15 years ago, making an impact was enough in a way, right? And now you need to measure it and communicate it. Otherwise, you'd know one, and that is quite complicated. So the impact measurement and management is crucial to me. And what I tried to do, with the team at the time at the Human Safety Net, was to develop a measuring, like a MEL, so monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework. And we deploy that across, our portfolio of partners. And now these 80 partners around the world, actually use that framework, which is something quite impressive, because it's a big community, and we have a way to consolidate our impact, in a dashboard. So we monitor very closely, both quantitative and qualitative data, and we regularly bring all of that to our board. And it's some sort of constant update, which is based on a mix of data and impact stories. And I feel that really helps, both our board, but also external people, to understand what we're doing every day, and how impactful we are. Because I think there's a lot of that, but if impact communication is very difficult. It's very tough, because if you stop at numbers, it doesn't really convey the message, at its whole. And yeah, I guess, but then there's also, that's more the monitoring, which is, more of the day-to-day, but, we also need to evaluate, of course, which is something that looks more of the longer period of time. And, to make sure in a way that we created the right conditions for the NGOs partner to, we support, to reach that long-term impact. We also planned programmatically towards that. So we created in a way this mechanism, which is called scale-up impact. And it supports, it's some sort of request for proposals, for our portfolio of partners, that supports a limited number of NGOs per year, based on criteria linked to scalability of a replicable model. So in a way, kind of the last step of the evolution over the years, I think it was really to put together the program strategy and the measurement strategy are talking to each other, basically. So we go in the same direction.
And so in terms of the measurement and how, I think we do talk a lot about this across the board, right? How do we measure and capture the data? How do we get that consistent? And how do we even decide what the outcomes or outputs or impacts that we're measuring are going to be? So did that start with the strategy, and that's where you developed what your metrics were going to be, or the other way around?
Yeah, we worked on a very thorough theory of change of our programs, and that's where we started. So, like the typical, trees, needs and everything. And so we started developing that theory of change, with the, a result chain coming out of it. And that is what actually started then, driving ideas on, what could be. We knew really well about the input, right? The funding that we have and what we put in there, but then defining the difference between really the output, the outcome, and the long-term outcome or impact, whatever you want to call it. That was the toughest part, I think, because in the end, you want to make sure that you have we're a service delivery organization and foundation in a way, so we want to make sure that we have an impact on people and transform their lives. But we also want to make sure that it doesn't stop at the output level, right? There can be a long-term impact.
Yeah, and then you need the timeline to be able to do that, because you have to be able to follow it out. So are you seeing some of that in just the 5 years you've been there? You're able to track impact, or that longer term view?
We are actually. 5 years is long enough in a way, but just long enough. So we're starting now. So we're now at this kind of midterm review, after 5 years. That was last year. And we started, the first time noticing, this long-term impact. It also depends on the sector, right? Because in the, we have two verticals, one to support refugees in, economic inclusion in the host countries, and the other vertical looks more at the early childhood development. So in early childhood development, I guess, you need more years, right? You need longitudinal studies, and you need, probably 5, 10, 20 years to really see, developments and impact on the children. But you can then decide to measure other things, like, for example, the parents, and their behavior change. So there are proxies for that too. While, on a refugee, finding a job or setting up a business is relatively easier in a way, right? To find, the impact, and, you just make sure that you also check and keep on tracking also the time, that the business is still up running, or, the person is still having a job.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are some of the metrics? Like, what would you say your top, 5 metrics that you're always looking at, disclosing to the board, and you said also external stakeholders?
Yeah, I guess on the work that we do on the refugees is more right about, really business created. So, startup and business created, jobs created as well. And, and then, the time spent, how long the business is still active in. When we look at the early child development side, I think that's a bit more complicated because, as I said before, we try to split between looking at behavioral changes in the parents. So how much, parents, change their behaviors, how much quality time they spend with their kids, what they do when they're together with their kids. And then, the longer term ones on the children directly, which are the ones, where we still do not yet have, results. We have some first outcomes, but not yet, long-term outcomes.
So in terms of the journey of kind of the cycle that you would go through, is it start with program strategy or is it starting with theory of change and then program strategy, and then you're defining your outcomes and outputs and long-term KPIs, and then you're doing your monitoring and measurement? Or I guess you have the programmatic delivery in there as well. So walk us just through, if you would, the cycle that you think is crucial to the success that you've had.
Yeah, sure. I think we started, first of all, it was a definition of the verticals, and it needs to be very focused. That's thing number one, because we had long discussions with our board at the time, and, we felt we had enough money to do a lot of things, but then, the more you open up, the less you can measure, or at least can be focused in what you measure. So we decided to have very specific and focused verticals to work on, and in all 27 countries, those are, the things that we do, right? So, and that is, to me, first thing. Within, each one of these verticals, then we worked on the theory of change. So to me, that's thing number one. You need to have clear where you want to get and how you want to get there. And once that is clear, then it's also more clear about, who's going to be, that you're going to support, what kind of organizations, for which, for how long. And then, the definition of input, output, outcome, and impact comes, together with the theory of change that informs the program strategy. So for me, this first theory of change, with the definitions actually of the outcome there, and then that informs the program strategy that needs to adapt to that theory of change. And it's a dynamic process, of course. It's not that it's one set and it stays like that. We keep on revising it and working on it.
Yeah, so I was thinking it's almost like we call it like the strategy life cycle in the corporate sustainability world, and you're never done. You're always at some point of that, and it's always adapting and moving, and that's the beauty of it. That's why we have to be such resilient change leaders, right? To constantly be moving with it. So great. Well, tell me a little bit about, I know one of your big achievements and something you and I have talked about is this this transformation you made in getting more resources for your foundation and for the programs. I think you secured, is it a 300% budget increase? So 3 times budget last year. So huge congratulations, because I think that's the biggest complaint I hear from most of my executive coaching clients is, I don't have the resources, I'm feeling the pinch, there's not enough funding, there's not enough buy-in, there's not enough people to do the job, so well done. So what specifically did you do to influence? Would it be the board to increase the budget, or who are your kind of key players that you had to influence, and how did you do it?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question, and thanks for the board. I mean, that is, to me, is an easy answer in a way, So I guess, last year was 5 years, that we're down the lane, and we had our first, midterm results, and they were very positive. And again, I think it's really about, the solid measurement, that we managed to create, and, with a relatively simple dashboard showing our impact. And I think that played a big role, to be very honest. I'm really happy, that we spent a lot of time in making that a solid, machine. Because in the end, we all know that boards, do not have the time nor the interest to go into the operational details of our work, right? So to me, the key was to reassure them with the evidence collected from the ground. And once you show them like a positive impact and they understand it, then they own it, right? So, and that is one thing. And then also very important is to show that you can spend the money that is given to you. That is another thing that I think was very key to us. It is a bit of a delicate point because, cashing out does not always mean, that you're able to spend well the money. But it is for sure something that, you need to keep into consideration when you look at the board. And I think there's a third factor as well there, which is the co-funding, so we in a way, we managed to mobilize around, the projects funded by the Human Safety Net, around 4 million euros per year of co-funding. That was either like into the Human Safety Net itself or directly into the projects that we invested in, right? And, I guess that really shows some level of reputation, built in the sector, only in 5 years, by the way. So I guess, all of those factors together, in a way, convinced our board to triple our annual budget, which, in turn, put us in the position now to serve even more partners on the ground.
Well, it's a huge achievement, truly. And you're right, you have to then be able to spend it. You have to then have the engine behind the actual operations and initiatives to be able to send that money out into the field that you're trying to impact, right? So what would be some of the things that you would have done in terms of the co-funding? So I think that does show that does kind of build your reputation or your credibility to the board, but you would have had to have done that building of that credibility to those co-funders. Was there anything specific with that influencing that you did? Because I think that's also another challenge we have in foundations.
Yeah, I guess, partnership building and maintenance is, to me, is about perseverance in a way. So you need to hit and keep on hitting, and, maintaining contacts and calling people and not making it just into a call, but, like meeting people when possible, flying here and there. So that is, relationship building in a way. I mean, as simple as that, to be very honest, right? Because once you get to know the people behind the screen and they get to know you, then you can really explain, what you do with your work and with your foundation. Because, if you just, open a slide and, talk people through about what, your foundation does, there's plenty of those slides around. So to me, it's really about relationship building. And once you do have that click and that bond with that person, then it's much easier to build something. And I'm going to be very honest, that's how, it often works. And then there's another thing, which is, we strategically decided in the past, not to call this entity Generali Foundation, but it's called the Human Safety Net. You probably all, realize that. And I was like, well, what is this? And that was really a way to create an open net, so creating a platform in a way also for others to come and play in, right? And if you don't have, the big logo of the company there, in a way, it's easier. We are very connected to the company. I can tell you later a bit more about how actually we try to influence them and work, hand in hand with them. But when it comes also to partnership creation, we try to, focus on impact first. So we talk about what the Human Safety Net does on the ground. We have this dashboard. We show them, like how impactful it is, and that really helps getting other people and other organizations, onboarded. So to me, that is the key. Honestly, I think it's very basic, but very important.
It's interesting. It's kind of the answer no matter what you ask across, I think, the sustainability and social impact world. It's even the jobs, careers, everything. It's relationships, and not just going for the ask, but, just doing it from the deep sense of being human and wanting to connect and having a shared interest for, shaping that change or impact. So
Yeah.
It's a good
And then
message.
maybe another point, Shannon, I'm thinking of now, also like in-house knowledge is very important for us, meaning that, we have these two thematic areas. And you said before, I was noting it down, to be an effective agent of change does not mean that, you need to know everything. True. And that's me, probably. I don't know everything, but I did hire people that came from, those sector, spent, I don't know, 15 years in Save the Children, 20 years working for refugee organization on the ground. And that builds, that in a way in-house knowledge and capability that then it is felt when you communicate and talk and work with others, right? Because in a way, what you're talking about. You can co-design and co-create some projects, and it works with potential co-funders. It works with implementing organizations, and I think without that, it would have been much more difficult, to build, the level of partnership that we built over the years.
So there's some part of the cycle we were talking about earlier. Once you've got your verticals decided, you then need to potentially staff up and recruit people with that subject matter expertise or experience in those verticals so that you have that kind of robust knowledge within the team, rather than relying on that being just through your partners or through your charities that you're donating to. Great. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So tell us a little bit about, so obviously the budget is then affecting the foundation's activities, but what do you think that the three things are that you've done to influence how the foundation has affected the business strategy? So how does this link? Because I'm thinking insurance, refugees, or insurance and jobs, and insurance and child, so walk me through your connecting the dots back to the core business strategy, because that's ultimately what we call strategic philanthropy, right? Or strategic giving or whatever. Yeah. So walk us maybe through, I don't know, three things you did that aligned it, or that was part of that journey of coming up with the foundation strategy that then helped support your business strategy.
Yeah, sure. No, happy to do that. I mean, I guess it's the most challenging part of my job, I have to say. It was, part of that piece of social innovation, which is the last one of the three that I mentioned at the beginning. I guess, again, linking back to what I said before, the budget increase that we secured helped us amplify our impact, yes. But in a way, it was a proof of the recognition of the board of the good work done, right? And recognition for such a young organization also meant more internal visibility, within the business. And that was immediately seen because, more interest came from different business functions, which are started basically from last year to reaching out to us for collaboration. So business functions reaching out to the foundation to collaborate in some level, right? When before then was us trying hard, to knock at different doors and get these doors open. I think what is crucial, on my experience, is that the foundation can speak the business language. So until the work of a foundation is perceived as a charitable only, with no tie to the core business, I think it will inevitably, rest on the side. So it's crucial to, steer from the beginning the strategic objective of a foundation in alignment, with the core business of the company, and that is what we tried to do with the Human Safety Net. In 2019, as soon as I joined, we did this very interesting design thinking exercise, which was with Generali top managers, with the staff of the foundation and NGO partners. So there's three very different worlds altogether. And altogether, we tried to define how to best leverage Generali's skills and products and services, for a positive social impact, right? And it was relatively simple because in the end, we came down to the idea that, Generali is an insurance and asset management company. So these are the two big streams, right? And it has a strong focus on its people. And so we looked at that. We thought, okay, asset management, insurance, people. Then we looked at the sustainability strategy of the company at the time, right? Which actually was talking about responsible investor, about the asset management, responsible insurer, responsible employer, and responsible citizen. So the last one, the responsible citizen, is the human safety net, right? And it perfectly fits, that pillar, and clearly, it's what I've been telling you before, about what we do, the work with the NGO partners, right? But we didn't want to stay in there, right? And it was clear from the beginning that the human safety net was not just the, responsible citizen, because we believe that, every side of the business has a citizen aspect. So this is why, since the inception of the human safety net, we thought of, defining it, and also the sectors, the themes, the issue that we work on are thought, on that light, meaning that we decided to focus our efforts on 3 areas: the inclusive hiring, which, responds to the responsible employer, part of the sustainability strategy; on social definition and development of social products, so insurance, inclusive insurance products. This is the, responsible insurer; and then impact investing, which responds to the, responsible investor. So these 3 areas reflect, the pillars of the sustainability strategy of the company, right? And from 2019, we started working on pilots on each one of these 3 streams. And we've been advancing quite a lot. And of course, the human safety net does not have, experts on investment, experts on, actuaries, experts in product development and insurance. So what I have to do is to make sure that my team actually knocks the right doors and starts, boosting collaboration with all the functions of the group, that have an interest to do that. And here, just happy to dive into it afterwards if needed. But I think, to me, the main takeaway here is that it's very easy for everyone to understand the social case, behind doing impact investing, for example. But the business case is the difficult part, right? And that's why you need to learn to speak the language of your colleagues that sit in the different functions, to make sure they do open that door and keep it open, right? Otherwise, they keep on shutting it in front of you, because they have inevitably different KPIs, different targets. So you need to be very aware of those and to speak their language. And so to show, for example, how, in terms of retention, in terms of visibility, in terms of, things that you would not put as impact first, but you need to start defining how, you can monetize some of the other externalities, that, for example, an impact investment would bring. And then they start listening. And once they are open to listen, well, then it's easier. Then it's easier because then you can discuss, and then they understand and they follow. But at least they follow you and they want to talk to you. A bit, based on my experience.
Yeah, no, that's amazing wisdom. And I think it's always interesting because you never, none of these jobs are in silos, right? Of course, and you've got so many different people within your organization and externally that you're having to align and, build the strategy with, deliver on it, and then report back. And I really think hearing everything you're up to, Alan, makes me think you're wearing at least 3 hats at this point. So I know our group here with us today would love to ask some questions. So you happy for me to open it up? We ready to? Yeah, great. Okay, Malcolm, do you want to go first with your good juicy question here? It's quite long, but I'll let you summarize.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the presentation. So yeah, you had mentioned that you needed outcomes in order to influence your board, and so I was wondering, I'm kind of reading off my question, but have you had to face like sort of a cart before the horse scenario, where if you're literally trying to get a program off the ground where you don't have outcomes, what are your strategies in that case to influence stakeholders for buy-in?
Yeah, that is interesting. I think, we found ourselves, especially at the beginning, of our, journey in that situation, meaning, that we had to start doing something on the ground first, right? And so to me, what I always try to look at is, to make sure that, everything that we do can be justified and can be defended, right? So impact first in our work. And that's, to me, thing number 1. So we have strong due diligences, we have strong, selection procedures, with our partners. And I just, want to make sure that the selection of the partners that we work with can be the one that can be justified, in front of our board. So it happened at times, that we had programs on the ground that were not yet yielding, any good outcome. We're not yet, showing any success. And we had to bring back, some, data to our board that was not sufficient or was not enough. I think there what is important, I mean, some of the tricks, not, to go too technical, but some of the tricks that I did was, I often invited the leader, the CEO of these organizations, after, talking to this person, to actually present at our board as well as an invited, maybe for 5 or 10 minutes, for our board also to get, the perception, and the reality, based, from someone really working on the ground representing that organization. And to me, that made a big difference, because I'm the one pitching to my board, and I'm the one, I mean, I'm kind of in that position that they feel that I need to sell them something. And I guess, that person too, but in a way, the words, that come from that mouth are different from mine and really represents the reality on the ground. So, I mean, to me, when we had issues of that kind, that really helped solving it. And I used it more than once, to be honest, as a solution.
Great question too. Thank you very much, Malcolm. I think that's yeah, that's true of a lot of the different challenges we have in this space, right? Is the cart before the horse. So I like that image of you got to start something, and then you got to, you just got to dive in, don't you, at some point, and just get it going before you can build the case and have all those measurement metrics. Go to John. Hi, John Norwood.
Hey, Shannon. Hey, Alan. Alan, you've been it sounds like you've been all over Africa and other places on your motorbike. So give us some perspective on some of these sustainability issues and how maybe different countries or companies think about these big themes. What can we learn?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, John. Yeah, I like that. Do Italians or Italian companies? Well, when it comes to Italians, I don't think so. I don't think there's any big difference, but sustainability, I mean, I can think, of the Generali, of the company that I'm in. And very honestly, I think that the whole attention to sustainability came a little bit later here compared to the States, for example. I mean, it is a huge thing now, but it is just starting, right? So you have companies that literally are now for the first time putting, thoughts into, embedding sustainability into the, the strategy of a business, literally for the first time. And I'm not talking about, small businesses. I'm talking about big companies. And that is, in a way, a bit embarrassing also for me that I represent here today, my country. I think Generali has been doing it for the past now 10 years, but very differently. The first 5 years, I mean, it was more, about, we have to do it and let's put it in there. And I think, now really together with the growth of the foundation, the human safety net, they started having something that they could really look at and say like, hey, this is a flagship program, at least in the S, the ESG, right? We have that and we can talk about that. Then of course, sustainability is much wider. And, there are things that in my opinion, for example, under the environmental part, a corporate like Generali can do a lot as a corporate, without having to lean on the human safety net, because it's relatively small budget, to have an impact, at least, on the climate change, for example. So there's sustainability now. It is really still a lot, at least in Italy, when I look around me, looking at the E, looking at the climate side, that's the majority of the work done around. I think there's an attempt in these days, also at European level, to strengthen more, the social side of it. But it's still a long way to go, and it's still difficult because it's still much more difficult, for example, to measure it, and to show results in there. But it's relatively easier to do it on the environmental side. So that is a little bit the situation, and I think it's still going to take quite some time to grow. And for example, positions like Chief Sustainability Officer, it's something that I think probably in the last year or two, for the first time, we're hearing in Italy. And I think if I look at how these positions are covered, in other countries, in the States, for example, in Italy, is still pretty much limited to reporting issues and retrofitting things and making order in the company, right? So it's still got like a huge potential, according to me, ahead.
Yeah. Great, good question.
Thank you,
John. Yes. Nina, over to you.
Hi.
Risk aversion.
Yeah, thanks for this. This is a great discussion. And I think that I'm hearing this topic coming up a lot, just about, especially for those of us who are really deep in the reporting world, how do we just, kind of break this cycle of this endless sort of being a reporting shop and start to think about, being able to devote more of our effort and our attention toward, what, not just what is this document, which literally ours is coming out like in 2 weeks. So I'm like deep in it right now. So it's really top of mind for me. And I'm actually like, as we're having this conversation, I'm looking at these pages in our report and I'm like, that's an activity, that's an activity, that's an activity, that's not impact. But part of where we get pushback is, we're a mid-sized professional services company serving the healthcare industry. We're definitely very purpose-driven, just kind of organically, to our just the nature of what we do. But our like our grant dollars, for example, I mean, it's a relatively small dollar amount. We're spreading, around $1.2 million across 79 community organizations, which, we're very proud of, and we're very selective and intentional in how we do that. But we're also mindful of the fact that every single organization that we engage with, they are probably overwhelmed. To ask them to give us back a lot of data is something that I think we're wary of. So we're looking at, say, 79 organizations. They may be all measuring or describing their impact in ways that are not consistent with each other. We can kind of bucket it into, health and human services or, environmental or things like that. But like what is the metric that we would roll up, to say that this is what we're impacting, I guess is one question. And then the other part of that is, how do we get comfortable with, if we're looking at a metric that is, that's tracked, through some, some broader, federal or county or, some other body, how do we take credit, for some change in that metric when we know that our contribution to it is just a tiny part of that overall landscape? I mean, yes, we have our pillars, but I mean, it's such a small piece that we're doing. So I just, I struggle with trying to figure out how we can make that leap to say, here's what we're really impacting without taking too much credit for work that, we're just a small part of, or asking these organizations that we engage with to kind of, adding to their burden of having to feed us back a lot of metrics or maybe track things they don't currently track so that we can tell the story of what we're doing.
Thank you, Nina. Yeah.
Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It does indeed. So yeah, I'll start with the first question, right? Kind of a overload of or a burden, like on reporting back on the organizations, right? I think on this is what we tried to do from the beginning was to develop. So there's two things that we've been doing. One is done already, which was developing this, MEL framework, right? And that is something that in our eyes had as an objective also the simplification of the reporting, for all our partners. Taking into consideration that, I was very surprised the first time I realized this, that, more than half of our partners actually did not have, a measurement system at all. So they would not be able, we tend to strategically choose for, small and medium organizations, to serve in order to be able to scale them. And so they would not be able to report back anything, right? And they had no idea how to do it. So in a way for us, that was also, non-financial contribution to this organization. So not just adding a burden to them, for them to report, but on top, of, the financial contribution we would give them, there was also this, non-financial one, which was like, we, provide you with this MEL framework for you to use. And while we did that, actually, we built it together with these organizations. So we have an annual event in Italy, in Venice, every year, where all these organizations actually sit together. And together they develop this framework. So that also means, that we did not develop, the metrics alone and said like, this is what we need as a funder, but actually that was done together with them. And we are now working on we call it like the minimum quality standard stream of work, which means that we're trying to develop for both verticals that we're working in, minimum quality standards in terms of, what has to be, the thing that a perfect, or at least a good program, good project on the ground should have in order to serve refugees in employability, on entrepreneurship, or early childhood development. And again, we're doing that together with the NGO partners, the regional networks, in terms of these verticals, and big organizations like UNICEF, UNHCR. And this is, in a way, for us, an attempt to simplify also, the life of funders that can be aligned in requesting the same information to the partners on the ground. Otherwise, you just, ask too much into different things, and also simplify the life of the partners on the ground. And when it comes to the attribution part, and well, that's a difficult one. I did, personally quite some research around that to understand, how the sector moves around that, and the sector just doesn't. Meaning that, there's no minimum percentage that you can say, like, if I put 10% of this, then I can, attribute myself X or Y. So what we try to do, at least on our side, is that at least 50% of the contribution of the overall project is what we need in order for ourselves to claim, the overall results of that project, right? If it's less than that, then, we look at the quota that we actually put, the rate that we put. And we try to do that in a way to be respectful also towards the sector, because, I know there's different ways to go around this, and I know there's different impact reports that I read, and, as you can just mention contributing to, and then, you can, basically, put 0.005 and, say that you reach the overall, the whole impact. We try not to do that. We try to be respectful, but that's to me a very crucial issue that should be discussed in the sector. And I reached out to other funders actually to do that, because I think, there should be a common way of working around this. Otherwise, it's just too easy to, throw out numbers that in the end mean nothing.
That's really helpful, and especially I think thinking about it project by project. And it also just reminds me that not every metric has to, roll up to something. Sometimes we just tell individual stories of projects that had outcomes, and not everything has to be like in, this bucket we went from here to here.
Yeah.
That may be the better way to kind of reflect that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good feedback. Yeah, thank you, Alan, and good question, Nina. So we've got a final question here from Michelle, who is in a noisy cafe, so I'm going to ask it for her. Can we hear about the transformation of your prior experience into landing your current role?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off as a, in a way, project manager for NGOs working on the ground in often very tough areas of the world. So mostly in African countries, but also like in Haiti right after the earthquake. So my work was, like implementing, managing projects on the ground for big or small NGOs. I then transitioned into, setting up a foundation myself in South Africa. That was in 2010, 2012, on mental health. So it was a completely different, topic than the ones that I work on now. But it was for me, the first time that I was in touch with, the world of foundations and the potential that, a corporate foundation, even if it was a small corporate, but a corporate foundation could have. And that's when my eyes actually started, open, and I could see, the big potential there. And that's actually when I crossed the Shannon for the first time as well. It was right before I came back from South Africa to move back to Europe. And at the time, I really, honestly, wanted to start working more closer to the private sector in some ways, because I thought that's where there was the most potential for, amplifying the impact. I was on this side of the fence, and I wanted really to go on the other side and see, if there was the possibility of influencing, more the capital and the money that would then flow towards the ground. And that's when I first moved, working in consulting. So also thanks to Shannon, that we're working together, I landed like a job in the Netherlands for 5 years in consulting, but it was consulting around international development. So I started working with the Mastercard Center for Inclusive Growth, Visa and other big corporates to help them, develop their CSR strategies at the time. And that's when I first started seeing and realizing what it means, to be within a big corporate, and how, people were thinking within that company, the corporate, about impact, which was very different from the way that I was seeing impact, from that moment. So I put the two things together, and I thought, there was a way, to make a difference there. And the next step was, this job that is now almost 5 years that I'm in, which is a bit of an hybrid for me, because I always make this joke, with my friends that when I in any given day, like I sit in the office and I'm a businessman to my NGO partners, with a tie, walking in this big tower. And then when I talk to my colleagues, that work for the company, I'm this, charity guy, that works with the NGOs. So I kind of play, these both roles, in the same day, which to me is beautiful and great, because you learn from both. And being able to bridge those two worlds in a way is relatively easy for me now, but I see that is the skill that I acquired. And also thanks to Shannon, we managed to put together, because that is something quite unusual, being able to understand one side and the other side, and bridging. Sometimes it's as basic as language. I mean, it's just different languages that are spoken. And if you speak in a certain way, you will just be rejected, and I talk about both sides, right? So to me, I think, that's a little bit my story and how I landed this job. And I think, the main skill, I think, that it was needed for this job, and also the reason why they selected me for this position.
The passion I have is seeing people like you, Alan, evolve into, there's never a straight line, right, in our careers. It's in impact and sustainability. So it's always so motivating to see how others have gone from a motorcycle tour around the world to starting their own foundation to, moving into consultancy and then into a corporate foundation. So I think your story is one of my favorites in terms of that evolution. So appreciate you taking the time today to share your journey and all of your amazing achievements already at the Human Safety Net. And I know we've all learned a lot today. So we can catch up on anything we missed in this session today if you didn't take copious notes fast enough, on the GreenBiz article that'll be coming next month, and then the YouTube recording of today will be following right along with it. So we do also have an amazing lineup of change leaders in the coming months. We are moving to a bi-monthly cadence. So that means we're skipping July, and our next speaker will be in August, and that's Chelsea Mosen, who's the Senior Director of Impact and Sustainability at Etsy. In October, we've got the Head of Responsible Investing at Aon. December is the CSO of International Paper. February, we've got Global Head of ESG and Sustainability from Organon. And April, we've got the Deputy CSO at the White House.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alan. Buon compleanno.
Grazie. Thank you.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao.
Ciao.